All right, 6 o'clock, 6:01, we'll call meeting order. Everybody have a chance to look over the park board meeting minutes of March 25th, 2021. Any corrections or discussion? Is there a motion to approve?
Second.
All in favor? Okay. Public participation?
I just wanted to come in tonight. I was originally going to ask about ballparks, but Drew already took care of that for me, and so I just wanted to publicly thank Drew for getting in there and calling some folks and getting some stuff done. So kudos to Drew. Thanks.
Thank you. Thanks, Drew. Any other public participation? Good. All right, financial report. Honestly, I haven't had a chance to look through it this month. Anybody have any questions or anything bring up here?
I had a few questions, yes. One thing I noticed, in a combination of the revenues plus expenses, we seem to be ahead on revenues and down in expenses, so good job to the crew on that. Let's see, pool expenses, all of the budget items, those line items are not actually going to be spent this year. Management fee, chemicals, all of that stuff, correct? So that essentially could be dedicated elsewhere.
Correct.
Let's see. And then the one other question on the beginnings of the half-cent tax, the month balance is 54,000, year to date is 281. How does that compare with the projected? Curious.
On the new sales tax?
Yes.
I think we're right on track with it. I haven't really looked at it. We don't have much data on it, but we could look at other.
I was just curious if you had a feeling for if we're tracking where we were projected to be so far.
Yeah, I know our city manager gave a report at the council meeting on Monday night, so I know they've got the information on the history of our sales tax and how they're projecting and tracking. So I will see if Steve would share those charts with me, and I can email to the park board.
Perfect.
I think it's got a 20-year history to it.
Okay. Those are my questions.
And I would say too, on the financial report, especially with newer members, if anybody wants to come in and sit down and visit with myself and or the finance director to kind of help understand how the line items work, what they mean. We've done that in the past with newer members. Just give me a holler and we'll set something up.
I noticed that since we opened up shelters after last meeting, we've already got 5 shelter rentals.
I'm sorry.
We opened up the shelters after the last meeting, we already had 5 shelter rentals in the month.
We've had a couple calls on them.
Yeah, so that's good.
Yeah.
I didn't know how quick it would take for word to get out and people realize they were open again, so that's good. Any other questions about the financial report? All right, we'll go to the director's report.
Just to follow up from last meeting, there was a discussion on a community garden. In the past, I did ask our community development director. There was a request for a conditional use permit was issued for a community garden, but it was never built, and the conditional uses, I believe, expire after 1 year. So there is no community garden in Cameron right now. A few other quick notes. We will be doing concurrently with our park board, our annual tree board meeting next month. So I'll be working with some of you to bring up any tree issues. We'll probably review our approved street tree list, as well as our prohibited trees. Again, we have a list that is the approved trees to plant in the right of way, the city right of ways, but then there is also a prohibited list that you cannot plant anywhere within the city limits. So we'll review those again, go over a few things with our trees, look at our tree planting. And then also happy to say that Arbor Day is scheduled and back on track this year. We are going to be doing, again, Arbor Day is celebrated on different dates with different states to coincide with their best planting times. Missouri celebrates it, most municipalities celebrate on different days to coincide with our schools. And we've got the assistance this year from Matt's Healthy Woods. So we're also excited to say that this year's kindergarten class tree is going to be donated by Matt's Healthy Woods. But in addition to planting the kindergarten tree this year, we're also going to plant last year's kindergarten tree because of COVID. We didn't have an opportunity to celebrate, so we'll be planting a tree with first graders this year also. We bring the kids back out all the way through 5th grade. Last year would have been our first kindergarten class ever that we want to take back when they're seniors and take a picture in front of their trees. So unfortunately, the class of 2020 did not, and I think there's almost a lot of majority have class of 2020 ties. So unfortunately, they didn't get to. We've thought about different ways to try to get them back, but I just don't think we're going to get kids that are a year out of high school that.
5-year class reunion.
You know, that's not a bad idea. That might be something to think about for their reunion. But we will, we're going to try to work with high school this year to get the seniors back, maybe not on Friday the 30th, but at some point, so that they can take the picture. They'd be the first kindergarten class. We have pictures with them, kindergarten 1st, 2nd, 3rd, 4th, 5th, and then now as seniors. So kind of started putting those into a little book or a little wall somewhere that we can display and show how the trees have grown and the kids have grown over the years. So it's pretty crazy. This year's class is, we'll be, of course, doing the first graders 2032, and then the kindergarten class, which is the class of 2033. So, and we are going to be planting Matt, you want to talk about trees?
For last year's kindergarten class, so this year's first grade class, I'm planning for a Kentucky coffee tree to go in on the northeast corner of Kelsey Park. And then for this year's kindergarten class, a burrow just on the east side of the farthest west shelter. I don't know the shelter numbers off the top of my head. There was a large silver maple there that got removed, I think 2 years ago with a big beehive in it. But we're going to put a big burrow back in that spot.
Pretty excited about that. If anybody wants to join us, let me know. I can email you the schedule. We'll run about every 20 minutes, and I'm sure Jimmy with the paper will be there to help us out, take pictures. All right, thanks. A couple other quick updates too. The library just called today. They've got some exciting summer schools or summer activities coming up. One of the things they wanted to, and I asked, we'll have to really take a look, but they want to do a scavenger hunt where they tie clues to trees. They'll use really loose yarn, only be up for 5 days, and then they'll rotate throughout the park throughout the summer, though it's not in the road of our mowing operations. They're going to do a book walk just on Friday mornings, and then the other thing that they called to ask us about is sidewalk chalk art by the Learning Rocks across from the library on the east side of the park, where you could go in and check out chalk. Kids could go over and color on the sidewalk then, the library would go over and inspect it, judge it, and then they'd put the chalk back. So that was a pretty neat idea. So the library will be doing that in the park this summer. City manager requested a new dog park sign, so there will be 2 signs. And I can email those. I think, did you guys get the signs? Did I get those attached? No. I think I forgot to attach those. Let me email those back out to you, but the first sign is the council changed the policy where anyone with a city license, if you guys remember that, we had that discussion here a year and a half maybe, but anyone that has their city dog license is also able then to use the park at no additional tag or fee. So it's open to residents. But then with the non-residents, the question was, is if you're from out of town, traveling, wanting to stop by, how do you know if you can use the park? So if you have another license or city tag or proof of your vaccinations for your dog, so the first sign basically just says welcome citizens with current tags, and then also visitors, and then the second sign would be inside of the park with the long list of the rules. Moving towards that direction, I will make sure to send an email out with those signs for your input and review. Everything else I have, I think will cover underneath either the park or the pool updates.
Okay, great. So let's move into new business, the park amphitheater.
I guess I will start off on that. I got a phone call from Billy Lowenstein a couple weeks ago with a proposal to develop funding, private funding primarily for a larger scope on the new amphitheater at the new park. Billy, go ahead.
Information here. Pass out. Alright, so as you all know, as part of this new park, there's an amphitheater plan. The way I understand it, the current plan is to build a concrete pad for the stage, grade dirt work, and potentially build some sort of shelter building on top. The budget that you guys currently had was about $150,000 total for all of that. $112,500 was for the pavilion. That was kind of optional, depending on how the rest of the park budget worked out. So, for sure, what your plan was to just build a concrete pad and do the grading for an area that would house about 1,500 to 2,000 people maybe. And that would be great for, small local events. But if we're going to actually have an amphitheater that's capable of hosting a real concert that can draw thousands of people, some enhancements would need to be made to that. So I got the idea to spearhead a private fundraising project to make this into an actual amphitheater capable of hosting a large concert. I reached out to Matt. We went out there and looked at the site. It would be perfect for what we're talking about. You would need to move the concrete pad down to the corner of that northwest triangle of the area to open up that whole triangle for use, and that could hold about 5,000 people. So the objective here, as you see, is to capitalize on this opportunity presented by this new park and create a premier entertainment destination in Northwest Missouri at no additional cost to the taxpayer on that end. The benefits puts Cameron on the map as a destination city for entertainment in Northwest Missouri. There's a quality of life enhancement for Cameron residents, gives them something else to do. Increase in foot traffic for local businesses, like restaurants, gas stations, hotels, tire repair shops, you name it. It's a boost in the local sales tax revenue from all the people who would draw into these events. And it's an attractive amenity for potential future residents or businesses when they're considering where to move their business or where to move. So the initial capital investment that I'm estimating with the help of my friend Tim Rose, who has run all of the concerts for us if anybody's familiar with RoseFest. It's not named after Tim Rose, it's actually named after my daughter. But he's got his own music venue about an hour east of here, and he knows all about that stuff. He ran all the concerts, provided the sound system, the lights, all of that. And he also builds parks and ball fields and stuff like that. So he's helped me through the budgeting process to figure out exactly what it would take to do something like this. The initial capital investment's estimated at $575,000 to $875,000, and you can see I've summarized the major items here. If you go back in your packet a few pages, you can see a more detailed line item budget. $575,000 is the minimum that it would take to actually build a fully functional amphitheater. The extra $300,000 comes from the shelter, the open air shelter, and a permanent concession building with permanent restrooms, as opposed to just putting it all under a tent and having porta potties out there. So that's $300,000 for those optional things, $875,000 all in, to get you the stage, access road to the stage, fencing around the perimeter, all the dirt work, concrete around the stage, a ramp up to the stage, concrete dance area in front of the stage, and all the electric, sewage and water for, all the utility requirements, and then plus the $300,000 for the optional structures to have a permanent concession stand, permanent restrooms, and a covered area. So funding for this, the city obviously does not have money to spend on, I'll call it a luxury, entertainment improvement like this. There's roads that are crumbling, and there's many other more pressing needs that the tax dollars should be spent for. So I have spearheaded an effort. I went and talked with the chamber board on Tuesday, and they are on board to help with fundraising, to talk with their business members and other local individuals that they know to help raise this privately. I spoke with one potential donor so far, and I had a $100,000 commitment from them. So we've got $475 to $775 left to go. We haven't even begun to start fundraising. So the existing park board budget, like I said, you had $150 in there if you were going to do the pavilion. I would prefer that as little taxpayer dollars as possible are used for this. So my goal is to, through private fundraising, is to raise $875,000 to pay for the whole thing without using any taxpayer dollars at all. That would be the ideal situation, obviously. And then there's also grants available. There's COVID grants for the entertainment industry that might be applicable here. Community betterment grants or other sort of entertainment grants for capital investment to build, community arts projects such as this. So that would be something I would also explore. Moving on, once it's constructed, you have to operate it, obviously. And I know the park board doesn't have the resources to devote an employee to running an amphitheater. So I'm going to form this Cameron Amphitheater Board, or whatever you want to call it. Myself and a number of other individuals that would be responsible for setting the overall strategy and the vision for the amphitheater, working together with the park board and the city to set the concert schedule. Ideally we would have a summer concert series of 6 to 8 shows per year. Throughout the rest of the year, it could be used for other sorts of community events. The school band could go out there, the jazz choir, the Cameron City band could do something out there. You could do a Christmas in the park type thing. Or you have Santa Claus, the Crossroads Crush thing that we had downtown, any type of festivals. And you could also have it open for private rentals. So Kearney, for example, they rent their amphitheater out for $2,000 to anybody who wants to hold an event out there. So it's another potential revenue stream. So the amphitheater board would be responsible for developing and maintaining the annual budget and financials, securing the annual entertainment grants, which can be used to pay for the artist booking fees, as well as local sponsorships to, if someone wants to hang their banner out there. Set the calendar of events in conjunction with the park board and the city. Actually booking the acts, I have a good relationship with the booking agent through my experience with RoseFest, booking bands, and I've already reached out to them, and they're willing to help in whatever capacity they could. We would be responsible for promoting and advertising each event, for making sure all the band rider requirements are fulfilled, any equipment they need to put on their show, the hospitality things, like making sure they have their green M&Ms and all the other sorts of weird requests that they do and will have. Contract with the sound and light technician and the stage crew to actually run the show. Coordinate with the Cameron Police Department or Sheriff's Office on security needs. Again, Kearney, I know a lot about Kearney because we were planning on, with RoseFest, we outgrew the Elks Lodge. And we were going on to Kearney because that was the next closest place that was capable of hosting an event of that size. So what they do down there, they contract with the Kearney Police Department for off-duty officers to come out and run security for their events, and they pay them on an hourly basis. And then we would also coordinate with local organizations like the Rotary or the Elks or the Knights or the JCs or the Optimist Club to staff the remaining areas, which would be the admissions crew, operate the concession stands, the parking attendants, and the cleanup crew in exchange for a percentage of the profits. And we would wanna have one group in each area on an annual basis, so you don't have to, retrain a new group every single show you have. And then overall amphitheater maintenance and improvements. So that's what the Cameron Amphitheater Board would work hand in hand with you guys and with the city to make sure that once this is built, it's actually utilized and operates to its full potential. Now, going back to the operations, the revenue sources for this, obviously the ticket sales, you have the food and alcohol sales, you have your annual sponsorships from local business that want to advertise out there. You have your entertainment grants, which can be applied for on an annual basis to help with the artist booking fees, and then the facility rentals. The expenses on a show-by-show basis, obviously the artist booking fees, the promotion and advertising, the band rider requirements, the sound, light, tech, stage crew, security, and then whatever we pay to the community organizations to staff the other areas that are needed. And if you look behind the capital investment budget, I have included a sample show budget for an average size show. Some shows will be smaller than this, some shows will be bigger than this, depending on what bands you have. I envision, 3 to 4 shows a year with some sort of national headliner act, and then some others with more local, regional acts that are cheaper, that would obviously draw less. But on average, if you have 1,500 people at $15 a ticket, and then you can see I've split out the alcohol and sponsor revenue on a per show basis, entertainment grants. Average revenue per show would be about $50,000. Your expenses for the artist booking fees, production crew, the cost of the food and alcohol, promotion, band rider requirements, security, utilities, and then the community organizations that we pay to run the rest of it, add up to about $30,000. So on average, you're looking at about $20,000 profit per show. You have 6 to 8 shows, that's $120,000 to $160,000 profit per year that this amphitheater would generate, not even including the derivative benefits of the boost in the sales tax revenue, boost to the local businesses, and so on. So that profit could be used to maintain or improve the amphitheater. It could be used for the park board to hire an additional person to be dedicated to the new park out there, including the amphitheater, to have more hands-on approach and actually running the operations out there. It could be used to fund other future areas of the park that you guys are planning on developing in subsequent years. So Matt and I went out and talked with an architect who designed Carney's amphitheater and several other amphitheaters in the Kansas City area. They've sent us a proposal, $8,000, which I included in the budget here, to design the amphitheater. And then the rest of the packet, basically this page here is your current plan. You can see section E up there is where you currently plan on having the stage or the concrete slab. Our plan would move it back up into that corner and utilize that whole triangle, as you can see on the following page, which would hold about 5,000 people, as opposed to 1,500 to 2,000. And then the stage itself, which I have modeled this off of, this was from an amphitheater in Clarksburg, West Virginia, that my booking agent, they're from West Virginia, and they work with this amphitheater regularly. They said it's one of the best amphitheaters they've worked with. And it's actually pretty simple. I mean, you can see it's just a concrete slab with some pillars and a prefabricated roof on top and a rear wall. Ours would be elevated a little higher off the ground, 3 to 4 feet. And then there's a couple, it looks simple, but when you turn to the next page, this is what it looks like when there's actually a concert going on. And it looks simple on the, at first glance, but it would be perfect for what we need out there. And then the last page is a picture of what's possible here in Cameron. This is from RoseFest in 2019, when we had Ricky Skaggs out at the Elks Lodge, bringing 5,000 people, back 5,000 people into the Elks Lodge. So people are out here loving music. Everybody's going to be looking for something to do once, all the restrictions are lifted and people can get back out, back to normal. We've got a very unique opportunity here to actually make something really good here in Cameron, and I'm willing to, like I said, take the charge on private fundraising to make it happen. We obviously have to talk with the city attorney to make sure that my two goals with the fundraising, one is that all donations are tax deductible. So this Cameron Amphitheater Board would be a 501c3. You could have the donations come in from there, the construction costs come out from there. I mean, my two goals are that the money coming in is tax deductible and that the money that comes in is set aside and actually used for the amphitheater specifically. So I think by having this nonprofit similar to how Main Street works with downtown, this Cameron Amphitheater Board working with the park board in the city to collect all the donations, construct the amphitheater, hand the keys over to the city at the end of the day, and then it would be the city's property and the park board's property. Like I said, I've got to talk to the city attorney to get all the I's dotted and the T's crossed on how exactly it would run. But then the board would have a hand, a very active hand, in actually running and operating and maintaining the amphitheater on a go-forward basis. So my ask from you guys right now is just to do nothing for the time being, hold off, and don't build your pad, don't grade out that smaller area that you were planning on doing. Give us from the end of, about mid-May, end of May is when the 501c3 paperwork should all be processed by the IRS. We're an actual nonprofit organization, and then we have a 90-day period through June, July, and August to do the fundraising within a 90-day window. And then at the end of that 90-day window, we'll see where we're at. If we raise the money to do it, like I said, at least $575,000 is what it's going to take to make a fully functioning amphitheater. $875,000 would be ideal with the permanent shelter, the restrooms, the permanent concession stand, and then we get everything in order to be able to hit the ground running the following spring in 2022 to break ground. Constructed throughout 2022 with an eye to the summer of 2023 to have it in operation.
That's one question, I guess it's not even a concern, but how would we make, I'm sure you'll cross this bridge, but for instance, RoseFest, when you do that, the profit that you generated goes for an excellent cause. So how would we ensure that you make sure that
Well, that would be
that money is going to go to the foundation or whoever might utilize that other than say RoseFest?
That would be a situation where we rent out the facility to that particular organization.
Okay.
And they're responsible for paying, so our arrangement with Carney, for example, we were gonna rent their facility for $2,000. We had to pay them $800 for sound and light tech. We had to pay for the stage crew. We had to pay the Carney PD expenses to run, all the security. They use the Knights of Columbus to run the concession stands, and the city takes a percentage of the revenue, the Knights take a percentage of the revenue. The Knights were gonna donate their percentage of the revenue back to us. Basically, from the city perspective, you just rent it to them, they're responsible for running everything, they have to provide their own insurance, and then at the end of the day, they keep whatever profit is made from that event that they hold.
Okay. I just want to make sure that things like that, we're able to utilize the profits from it for what we're doing.
Right.
I might point out one thing on the map that has the contour lines. This one right here. Try to explain a little bit what the different lines up there mean. You can just barely see the letter E, which would be right below the current plan for the concrete pad. The solid black line is basically an outline of Carney's setup. The stage is a little semicircle concrete, and then the first arc is what I would call their primary seating area. And then that larger, that kind of looks like a baseball outfield, is up where they have scattered trees up to their final fence. The cutout that's at the top right of ours is where their concessions building is. So just for reference, for scale, that's what Carney's current setup is. The shaded arcs there are different potential sizes that we could make it, going from the largest, the pale gray color. The outer extent of that is a 400-foot radius, and then it's 50-foot increments going in, so 400, 350, 300, 250. Kearney's distance to their primary seating extent is 289, just for reference. Ours would have to be a little bit narrower to accommodate our space where they can spread a little wider. So if we got out to that 300 foot, we would essentially be comparable with Kearney's in terms of seating capacity.
And Kearney says they can hold 4,500, but you could, I guess, we packed 5,000 people into the home sludge. You could pack 10,000 into Kearney if you needed to. 4,500 is a very conservative estimate, but I'm shooting for about 5,000 capacity.
And it's good to go out there and look at it, because like, the day I was out there with Matt, and Billy, like, Matt has the GPS on his phone, like, and it's like, this right here is where our concrete pad would be with the current plant, and you can kind of stand there and look at it and go, well, we got it down there, it's just,
Yeah, it opens up the whole track.
Yeah.
And it's the perfect grade. I mean, you would have to do minimal dirt work, right? There's a little hump you gotta level out, but I mean, it's already set up perfectly. And it would just be grass seeding, to start. Over the years, plow some profits back into it and potentially create some sort of permanent seeding, but it would be just like Kearney is, and just be a grass hill to start, so you bring blankets and lawn chairs.
Functional everything during Mudfest, like, several years ago, yeah.
what was it you said about them providing, wasn't there like a beverage person that provided?
Yeah.
Something from Kearney, what was that?
So Kearney entered into a exclusive contract with Casey Bevco over a 10-year period to be the supplier for all of their alcohol and all of their shows. And Casey Bevco in exchange gave them a $250,000 sponsorship spread over 10 years, so $25,000 a year. And that's what they used to construct their pavilion and concession building and permanent area. So that's another option. I mean, like I said, if I can't raise $875,000, 575 is the minimum. You could do that and then have that revenue stream coming in and eventually build it from there. But my goal to start is to upfront raise that $875,000. That would be the ideal scenario. And that would go forward.
How much do we have? 150, I think. Is 150, you guys, that's part of the project, or is there any?
It was, the 150 was an estimate for the alternate itself for the shelter up top.
It's 50 to 150.
111,957. And then the 150 estimate came from what I would expect would be devoted to the dirt work over there. The 35 is probably a little bit high, would you agree, Steve? Because it's minimal dirt work that's gonna be required here. So in the 125 range would be, if we fund that alternate, what we would be putting towards that portion.
So my goal is to raise more money, but you guys don't have to put anything towards it. But
Yeah, in theory, if we continue to dedicate that 125 to the amphitheater, then that would reduce his target market.
But to this point, if you could get the full piece of it,
We can put that. on.
then that's 125 we put back towards soccer lights or.
That's an alternate we don't have to attempt to fund.
Right, yeah.
I think it sounds awesome. Very exciting. Yeah.
no, this is my passion, and I love music, and I've got the experience, with the concerts we put on for RoseFest, so I know what has to go into it. And I think it would be awesome for the city to have something like that, especially at no cost to the taxpayers. It's just, it's a win-win for everyone.
Question for Steve, and you may be already gonna address this. If, as Billy requested, if we just eliminate the grading, the concrete pad, all of that, is that practical at this point?
Yeah.
Okay.
Absolutely.
I mean, we just change our line, or if, if we bid the plans out, you could add it as an add to your contractor once you're selected, negotiate what that cost is, and just go. I mean, you could do your planning, your grading, whatever, we have a contractor on site.
So you're saying potentially this larger scope could just be a negotiated add-on, and that would be perfect.
Yeah, you just keep going. I mean, they're gonna do the mass earthwork, this summer, probably July, August, all that. And, I mean, all we would need is whatever you want for your preliminary grading, we could add it in, and then once your amphitheater design gets ready, we can have them price it. And if you don't like the pricing, you could do it a different way, or you could just fold it in and have that contractor handle it all. I mean, I think this is the right, we always knew this conversation was out there. We pulled back a little bit on the size of our space because we wanted to be conservative, but we knew this was our hope, and our hope is here. It's time to, accommodate that if that's what you want to do. And I think it's very flexible on how you get it done quickly.
Perfect. That was the answer I was looking for.
That's a better idea, like to build it right the first time than to,
Only thing.
halfway do it and then have to redo it again 10 years down the road.
Yeah, the only thing that I would see adjusting, and this might be a conversation for you to think about, is from your paved parking area, we wanted to get ADA access up to the top.
And that's actually, Steve, you have a copy, did you get a copy of this?
I got that about 10 minutes before your meeting.
If we went with a 400-foot radius, for a top extent, the existing planned sidewalk lands almost identical at the
Yeah, I
top
saw
of it.
that, yeah.
So, I mean, that could be just incorporated right into it.
Yeah, you guys are absolutely right. I mean, it's perfect for this. It lays perfect. You're just smoothing out the grade, and that's not a lot of earthwork. And it's just a matter of, that's why we left all that blank space behind in this plans, because we knew that could happen.
Yeah, we just thought it was gonna be 10, 20 years down the road. So, this is fantastic, thank you.
When we're gonna get the handicap ramp.
Yeah, exactly.
All right, that's all I have.
Thanks so much.
Thank you.
Next, new business is playground equipment.
I put this back on the agenda, the last question, we had, some questions on what the city and city council members thought. Just a quick update, you guys had asked if I would talk to the city manager to facilitate a meeting or ask him to speak with the council members. The city manager did speak with all the council members, and there were no, real strong feelings on the, playground equipment, with the general consensus to support the decision of the park board. You guys were the 9-member experts on that, so they'll rely on your decisions.
Okay. Great. Thank you. New aquatic facility.
Hey, good news actually on that one. We did send the plans out, I think to the full board, and also city staff for the preliminary review last week. The only thing the plans were missing was the mechanical and the electrical portions. I did speak with Andy Smith today, and he thinks that by tomorrow he will have the final set for us to review. So I will send that out as a downloadable link to everyone, for everyone to review the pool plans, the final. I'll also requested a full copy, paper set, the 24 by 36. So if anyone, it does get, when you start looking at 100 pages of plans, it does get a little tedious to look on a computer screen. So we'll have a full set here in City Hall if anyone wants to stop in and flip through the paper copy. Hopefully if we get those tomorrow, we can circulate with city staff for electrical building inspections, community development. We'll run it through everyone for their review and approval on the plans too. Make sure there wasn't anything that, make sure everything meets code and there wasn't anything that we overlooked on it. So we'd like to try to kick those back out. If we get those tomorrow or Monday, I'd like to just have city staff and board review for our final review is 1 week. If we could do that, kind of keep us on track and get construction with Carruthers started as soon as possible. So if anyone would like to, again, paper copies, that'd be great. One thing too, I would also, I handed out a, last minute here. I was visiting with the swim team president, and I was pretty sure we had our lane markers. We talked about those early on, way early on in the discussion. But one of the things we did overlook was the starting blocks. So when they pour the deck, we want to make sure we have the inserts poured into the concrete. So even if we don't want to spend the money to buy starting blocks today up front, it's probably a decision that we should make now so we can have the inserts and purchase the blocks later. I handed out a color copy of 4 different styles of starting blocks. They range from 3,200 on the low end to 5,200 on the high end. That's per block. So it does add up pretty quick on the blocks. In the lane markers, we would need 7 each, 6 inch by 75 foot racing lane lines. They're about $450 per line, plus the real cover, so looking at about 5,700 just for the lane lines. So we could range anywhere with 6 starting blocks from 19,000 to 30,000. Now, Matt did bring up a point earlier tonight that the operations of the pool, we won't have the revenue coming in either, but we will have the operational expenses. I would recommend that the board does, would like for you guys to kind of choose a style, so we can at least plan for the inserts, even if we don't have the money to purchase the blocks. That way when the pool's built, we know we want to do starting blocks, or not do starting blocks at all. But
One of the reasons we built or designed the pool the way it is to have a swim team.
Right.
Yes.
So you did, right, so you definitely need to plan on starting one.
Yeah.
Should I reach out to the swim team
Get their
and kind
thoughts.
of get their thoughts on it? I can reach out to her. I can reach out to her and also ask if they like to contribute.
Maybe they can do a fundraiser with a couple of blocks.
I mean, we were slightly under budget, correct, Corey?
Yeah,
I
I
mean,
don't remember exactly.
I don't remember the exact number, I don't think it was $30,000, but we were slightly under budget, so I'll reach out to the swim team and find out kind of which they prefer and maybe a collaboration on that.
Anybody remember what we spent on the cardboard ones with the carpet in 1985 that we didn't use since then? Because
Or like a parent, I don't say it's rich, but parents.
I'm just saying, I did off of those under fire.
Because depending on how much we were under budget, maybe a situation where we have to choose the cheapest option here, but if the swim team's interested in contributing some funds, we might be able to go, to a higher grade.
We need to look back, I don't remember the exact where we were at on,
We can get that one.
yeah.
I would think it'd also be worth reaching out to Andy Smith and see if he has a recommendation for best value out of these options.
Do you wanna check with Andy, since you're in contact? with
yeah,
him?
I did. It was just a discussion we had today. And one of the things too that I see in the notes there that I really wanted to point out is that our pool wall is 2 feet wide. So he said be cautious because a lot of people could just go online and Google starting blocks and be like, oh, hey, I found one cheaper. So we've got that longer reach because the insert's set back behind. So it was
What
one of
did you
those.
say the range was again, from
It's,
minimum to maximum?
Here.
Well, you're on total everything. You said
Uh,
18,000 to,
well, it'd be the lower one there, option A times 6 or option B times
It's 26.
6.
Seven times.
The other source of revenue, not only fundraisers, but I can tell you, there's gonna be parents involved and or grandparents. That will probably donate money to good starting blocks too.
And like Corey said,
That
that
source.
that may make sense to us directly cover the cost of the minimum option, and then anything that's raised privately can only upgrade.
When would they have to know by?
with our plan review, I would imagine there will be some items that we catch or would like to add over the course of the next week, so maybe a week for Lamprey and Harrison to review and revise our final plan, so it's hopefully 2 weeks. And I think Carruthers is ready to get started, so that's what I'd like to keep moving forward on this final plan review and any additions. And I'm sure there will be other little items that come up too, so if we need a pool committee, we could maybe get the committee back together and make a quick decision to keep moving forward and hopefully get Carruthers started in the next couple weeks.
Good. Look, you should call Molly and then Corey, get the committee to make the decision.
Yeah, we can. Thanks for volunteering too.
That may be something to Corey as the committee chair, if you guys want to get together and look through the paper copies. Sure we could ask Amy to come up if you guys have questions, or I could be there to help go through the apprentices, we flip through them.
All in one meeting.
Anything else on the aquatic facility, Drew?
No, just those two items. Of course, the big one, super excited that we're finally, tomorrow we'll have the final plan set to look through one last time, and hopefully in another 2 weeks, kick it out as ready to start.
We get the I know I saw on that one share drive thing we put out there, the graphics of the rendering of the pool.
Yeah.
Can we get just like a JPEG or something we can get out there that we can start sharing around now that we're getting closer, or we need to wait a little longer?
No, we definitely can. Did that last email have a link to it? Did the bottom link pull up?
Those are the share drives? They had all the stuff on it?
Yeah.
Yeah, I don't know, I thought,
Yeah.
okay, was that an Adobe or what was it?
On that,
That's what I'm talking about, yeah.
If you need to speak with the JPEG, let me know.
Okay, you do that, just, that's the over, I can't work. That's what we will share. We got it, Drew. We got it.
I'll take care of it.
Thanks. Last, new business, we have, stormwater plan at the community park.
Yeah, just updates. I know Steve is here too. We talked about the amphitheater, but we're moving along on that. The water and sewer have been designed. We worked through Steve Rhodes with Vario, his consultants getting that designed. Not only is it designed, but the DNR permits for the water and sewer have been submitted. We've also submitted the jurisdictional waters as the U.S. Corps. We have to do that. Our land disturbance permit's been submitted, and then the stormwater plan. Just like any other business, we sent our stormwater plan out to a third-party engineer for review. They did have a few comments. We sent it back to the Bartlett West and Vario. They made those corrections and additions, sent it back out for review, and we got the final approval on our park stormwater plan last week. So excited to say that we're really moving along, getting all of our permits in place, and everything is clicking. And again, Steve is here in case you guys had any questions. I don't think he has a specific update tonight.
Do we hear anything about any of the grants? Do we have any updates on any of the
We do, the LWCF from a year ago, we continue to submit information. The DNR said that they are 99%. We had to revise our 6F map. When we submit for these LWCF grants, if you have a grant on the property, it becomes forever and in perpetuity a land that can only be used for parks. It's kind of like a wetland. You'd almost have to mitigate it to do anything else other than a park, which is a good idea for the federal government, the state, and even the cities when you have monies in a plan to build a park, not to sell it off for something else 10, 15 years down the road. So one of the things they made us do was we did the right where the eastern portion where the ball fields are was one tract, and then the western tract, we submitted those as two separate tracts, both last year and then this year, because if you are working on a non-6F or permanent park property, you get additional points. So we talked to the state, and they said that our 21 application had already been submitted. She said, so you'll still get any points in scoring or a non-park use. So, Steve made us a map where we could submit the entire parcel as one permanent 6F or in perpetuity type park. Resubmitted that, and she indicated that was the last thing that they needed for the National Park Service. I was 99% sure that she could make an announcement within the next week or so.
Okay.
So, but that's on the first one. The second, that was the grading of the ball field.
Yeah.
The second one, we just worked on was, yes, the community amenities, which related to playgrounds, the restrooms, additional parking, I believe 3 shelters, which we, I think we should do good on that. We had a family who's gonna donate a pretty good chunk of money for a shelter out there, one of the shelters, so that really helped with our match. So I think we're in good shape on that one, but fingers crossed.
Okay, great. Anything else that we need to know or anything changing or?
No, Drew pretty much covered it. I was gonna update you on the permitting situation, which he covered all of those. In addition to all those, we do have our 106 for,
Oh, I did forget
we
about
do
that.
have 106 for basically everything here, approval.
106 is
The historic, yeah, the historic thing. We actually included the structure that's out here, and they said it's not significant, so. Other than that, we're continuing, our consultants will get us their plans by April 27th. We'll do an internal review of everything and get our documents to the city by May 7th. So, and then it's up, and then we'll go through the city review process and make any corrections, and at that point, we're ready to go.
Exciting times.
It is.
Was that additional grant, was that one that you could look into, that one?
The baseball?
Baseball.
I have not looked into the baseball grant that we did submit for the Musco soccer lighting grant. I will check into the MLB grant for the lighting over here.
Excellent. I was curious, I hadn't heard that, so,
Yeah.
thank you.
Yeah, thank you, Chris, for sending that.
Yeah, the Musco guy mentioned that one, so, they didn't have a deadline listed online, so, but when they.
Just a continual
Yeah,
process.
it's a continuing process on it, so they just review them all year long, so hopefully it'll work out.
I do have an update. Drew has been getting some calls, we've been getting some calls from contractors, and as they call, I'm keeping a list, so when we do get to the bid process, we can notify those contractors that it is out. So, it's a good sign.
Interest is always a good thing.
It is very.
We do have a lot of interest. We've gotten calls from companies that just specifically build the ball fields and ballpark type facilities like Mid-America type sports. Local contractors, because the dirt work, Steve mentioned earlier, there is a considerable amount of earthwork on this project, as well as subcontractors that specialize in specific fencing or other items related to the park. So between Bartlett and West, Vireo, City of Cameron contractors we've used in the past, as well as the calls we're getting, I think we'll have a substantial list, and we'll specifically reach out to all those different companies to let them know once the bids are out. And again, we're hoping May 7th is when you said we should have it. So again, maybe we get the committee together, do one final review. We'll send all the plans out to the full board. I've asked Steve for a paper copy, the same type thing, so we can have it here in City Hall for city staff to review. And if any board member would like to come in and also review those on a final review in paper, instead of digital, hopefully keep it to a week. We'd like to get those out as soon as possible and go ahead and advertise mid-May.
Great. All right, does anybody have any miscellaneous?
I was gonna just ask and see if anybody, like with the Historical Society, they presented about the name, the Historical Society did. They're planning on putting a Garrison flag and some kind of marker down there for Somerville. If somebody could see if anybody on the Historical Society would be interested in putting like a time capsule down at that location possibly, or something, if we do put a marker there for Somerville, or
for $40,000 for the Garrison flag.
Okay.
So it is for sure,
Too much negative right now.
We're moving that to a future project.
Okay.
It's not in this round. I'm the one that made the suggestion that we move it to a future project because we're not gonna have a ball field right now. We don't have a ball field right now. So I think I can't remember, I don't even know if that was a vote. I know what we voted on, but I think we talked about those, but I don't think we've actually voted on what we're actually gonna fund yet.
Okay.
Right now.
Yeah, our project will carry over through the winter with the substantial grading and some seeding for fall. There would be still a lot of construction activity through the winter and then finalizing for the spring, hopefully with one growing season this spring, another second growing season on the turf on the fields before we turn people loose in, mid-summer next year.
Yeah.
So our fiscal year, the city fiscal year ends September 30th, so I do remember that, apologize, yeah, 'cause that would be something that October 1 would still be plenty of time to construct a flag.
Right.
Before the park opens in July,
Next fiscal year.
next fiscal year, but it's still this calendar.
Until 2020.
Yes.
Steve,
Thank
is,
you for the help.
ballpark intended, opening date?
The ballpark?
The opening date, a ballpark for the opening date of the ballpark?
You're gonna put me on the spot.
When it's ready.
Yeah, when it's ready. What Bill said. No, I'm hopeful that it could be open, if they get moving on it pretty quickly, it could be open next late spring, summer.
Probably not by this time, not in time to be beginning of spring sports, but.
No. I think we want the growing season.
Yeah, the key is the growing season on the grass, the fields.
So even if construction's done, it's in our best interest to not.
If they can grade it, and get grass growing on the fields in the fall, and let it grow in the spring, that would be your best bet.
But like even this year, there's been a lot of grass that didn't germinate.
Yeah.
From last fall to now because we keep getting
These cold spells.
these cold spells and dry periods. So it's,
I had a note to bring up, regarding the park, if, what everybody's thought was on whether we should start looking at a name, if we should convene the park committee, if we wanted to assign a new committee, if we wanted to, how we want to move forward on that, looking at timing, when we think it does make sense to start thinking on the park name.
Yeah, I mean, I'm in a hurry just for the fact of, like, the situation that came up this week with a, citizen coming in with a great idea. I like the idea of keeping that as a blank canvas in case we have donors or, a family that wants to come in and help out. That was my fear of committing too early on a name. If we can use that for sponsorship money or for something else, that's my only concern. Otherwise, I don't really care about, we named it today, it wouldn't bother me, other than I just wanted to keep that option open as long as we could.
No, I can be bought to rename it.
Yeah,
If that sponsor shows up.
It's so far.
That's been my only concern with jumping the gun on the name, when we know we've got time, quite a while before we open. I mean, obviously we'll have to decide sometime, having any signs and what have you, but that's my only concern.
We don't have to order letters for the park sign as part of this May 15th, do we?
Kind of do.
Come on.
That was a question that Larry sent me up here to find out, so, we can keep it simple right now, and you can, again, change it later, but we could put it in chalk if you want.
Just order 30 letters, and then we'll decide which letters we want.
Those plastic letters.
You can change it for a month based on sponsorship.
There you go. We'll just buy an LED sign, and that'll be doing that.
organize, we're gonna call some local businesses. We talked about, the scoreboards and sponsorships and naming each field. So I think we're still moving forward in that direction, where each field could be a business named field instead of just 1, 2, 3, and then that would be, you know, something that would be incorporated on like the scoreboard of each field then.
Yeah.
Okay.
I was at Flat City, when we were at Flat City, anyway, last weekend for soccer.
Like microphone, can you use the microphone on?
Oh, is it on?
Oh,
It's on.
Thank you.
At Flat City, like walking into their ball fields and everything, I just walked up there and looked down there playing soccer. They actually had the banners, you know, all along their fence from all the local businesses, on all the ball fields out there. I didn't see any sponsorships on any of their scoreboards. I did get the brand off their scoreboards though, it was like All Americans scoreboards, I took a picture of them. Just kind of look at their concession stands and all that, but that's the only sponsorships I saw on the baseball field and stuff out there, so.
It is kind of a trend, I'm sure Steve could probably speak to this more than I could, but a lot of other communities, they do, you know, a 5 or 10 year program where a organization or business, pays a substantial, maybe not as substantial as $20,000 for X amount of years, and it's called you know, the park board field and the bank's field or whatever it is, the local restaurant field, etc. And that's the field name then over the next 5 or 10 years or 15 or however long you set for it.
You know, I know at one time when you looked into this, and this was probably 6 or 7 years ago, of what some of the other areas around us were charging for facility fees and for sponsorship fees, where do you, I'm not asking you to do more work, do you happen to have anything updated like that about like what's Liberty charging? I'm obviously we're not gonna get Liberty prices. but
I can
do we know?
find out Liberty's, rental rate for the field and also their sponsorship program.
Just something to have a guideline to go off of. Like, I don't wanna go out and start asking people for $20,000, businesses for $20,000, if they, Liberty's doing it for $20,000, it doesn't make sense, right? But,
I could find out what their rates are and send it to you, send it through Drew to you.
okay, that'd be a good place to start. Thank you.
And they have, their fields are sponsored by restaurants. They were gonna go as far down as to the on-deck circle. There was a decking company that was gonna buy all of those.
Yeah. I mean, I know it's a whole different thing, I get it, but at least gives us a place to start wrapping our head around where to start.
Yeah, and, you know, it used to be called Fountain Bluff, and it's now, Cap Fed Sports Complex of Liberty.
Yeah.
Which, that's a sponsorship number all in itself.
Okay, thank you, I appreciate that, that's all.
And it was funny, the park board that was there that built it said, we don't want any sponsorships in the park. And then it put-
Now everything's available for sponsorship.
We are the anti-network.
We need funds anyway.
Any other miscellaneous? All right, next meeting will be Thursday, May 27th, I assume here, unless something changes, at 6 p.m.
Yes, and we'll do the tree board.
Yes.
Meeting probably first.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Get a motion to adjourn.
Second.
All in favor? Thank you.